After intense weeks leading up trade line, Vancouver Canucks remained silent on their final barter day, only to move Curtis Lazar New Jersey Devils for fourth-round pick, including dropping a few players off paper with few minor league moves. They can participate in the All-Playoffs. This meant that the Canucks did not move any of their famous winger players. Brock Besser, Connor Garland or JT General Manager Patrick Allvin reported that he had turned down an offer of exchange for Miller, although there was room to read between the lines. "I had a team that reached out to me this morning," Allvin said of his interest in Miller. "I don't think they're too serious. I haven't had any offers for JT Miller. So I'm going to leave it here. This seems pretty certain." Contradicts a report confirmed by several NHL employees that Darren Dreger made a bid for Miller, which the Pittsburgh Penguins rejected by the Canucks. However, since it makes a statement when talking about last day of the trade, there is something about expression that leaves some wiggle space. Did Allvin mean that he had never received any offers for Miller on his last day of delivery? There was so much buzz by Pittsburgh Canucks was involved in trade talks with the Penguins about Miller that it seems almost impossible the Penguins never made any offers. However, there is possibility. The Canucks may be arguing about a possible Miller swap with the Penguins. But that depends on the Canucks making another swap. A deal to get a young pivot from team would make them feel better. It is easy to move Miller. This deal never happened, and it was technically true that there was never an offer on the table for Miller. From there, it's a phone game for Dreger, who reports that the Canucks turned down their barter offer because they wanted a center. Not that Miller wanted a from Penguins in return. The Penguins didn't have a pivot to trade for, but because Canucks never got that they wanted from another deal, trade talks were stalled. When asked about direct conversations with the Penguins, Allvin did not decline the exchange talks, only reiterated, "I never had an offer for JT. One side, either Canucks or Penguins, is not telling truth. Or at least not telling whole truth. It is PR 101 to say things that are technically correct without revealing important details." While the last day of surrender was quiet, Canucks' big moves came early in the week. The big acquisition was defender Filip Hronek, a longtime move for Canucks. Until a year ago, we looked specifically at options that came in on how to improve our right side, rejuvenate, get an idea for the current players, what market would be like last summer and this summer, Allvin said. "Our monitoring team has put together a list of players and we thought, you never know if a player will be available or not. At this point, we felt excited have opportunity to get best player. Finish off right-back player of 25-year-old Filip Hronek and have chance control him for 2 more years." It is interesting to note that Hronek will be kept under control for another 2 years. Hronek has another year on his current contract and will be a restricted free agent. Allvin is right. They only guarantee Hronek's control for another 2 years, as Hronek can sign his qualifying offer for 1 year after next season, and then become an unlimited free agent. However, it would be a disaster for the Canucks, who spent 2 main trading assets in the New York Islanders' conditional first-round selection to buy Hronek and their own 2023 second-round election. If they only own Hronek for 2 years, that would a huge waste of assets that could be used to pick players who could at Canucks for the next decade. However, Allvin wasn't too worried about using 2 predictions in the trade. Allvin said, "I'm not just collecting tips to pick up tips. I either collect forecasts for draft hockey players or I trade to get hockey players. I wasn't happy to give up Bo Horvat, but I was very pleased with how he came back. Most teams don't collect guesses, just collect guesses. Of course, they all use hockey players to win. Perhaps a person who didn't exist in 1974. Taro Sugimoto in 11. Except for Punch Imlach, which uses type draft selection. I don't think there are any discounts on top players. The timing of swap is also strange. Non-playoff usually don't buy on last day of swap because rival teams are usually willing to spend more to improve their in short term, which raises prices in trading market. The cost to acquire Hronek could lower off-season, or there could have been other options that might less costly for right-shot defenders, either in the trading market or in the freelance player. Allvin said, prices for top players will always be high. I don't think there's a discount on top players. And honestly, you never know if these guys will be available. The top players are usually not available. Since Hronek was ready on the line, Canucks didn't want to wait. They prioritized Hronek because they believe he fits the type of team they are trying to build. The way we create identity of fast hockey playing, skill have in front of us requires disc to go out. On ice, preferably on tape, Allvin said. Philip is a two-way defender and has established himself as a top defender in the league over the past few years. Your coaches have two really good defenders here, Quinn Hughes and Hronek, and that's in the hands of the technical team. How do we use them? He then said that they should be able to solve this with a left kicker defender in Sergei Gonchar and a right-knuckle defender in Adam Foote on the coaching staff. I wasn't willing to pay to get out of some contracts here. Allvin said Canucks had not really come close to any other deal until the line. This included using salary gaps earned through players going to LTIR to get bad money in exchange for choices or odds from other teams. Prices for Canucks weren't worth it, and could potentially include connecting grab points they might need in the future. Allison, we talked about that. Only 3 contracts are allowed with retention, he said. As reviewed all options to improve our club, we felt that some of the discussions had about draft elections were not such a significant turnaround. The Canucks need to leave some vacancies off-season as well, with their current commitments. They've already exceeded next year's salary limit. They looked at what it took to move a large contract to the line, and that didn't make sense at all. We have seen in the last few days how much it costs to complete contracts, Allvin said. At this point, I wasn't willing to pay to get out of some contracts here. If you're a low-performing team and you have underperforming players, you're not that attractive to other teams. Allvin said he felt comfortable that Canucks could move money out of season, hinting that they could go the buying route to free up capital space in summer. My expectation is to stay in the playoffs with the players we have. Canucks' underperformance was consistently chewed at Allvin's post-line press conference. We're not going to be in the playoffs this year. That's me.